Hello and welcome to the Stitch Together podcast. This is episode 22. The date is Monday the 28th of September 2015. Welcome to the show. My name's Chrissy, I'm your host. Welcome back to all those people who've seen me before and decided to hang on in there for another episode. It's good to see you. Well, I don't see you. It's good to know you're out there. And welcome to all the people who are trying this episode out as the first example of my podcast. I hope you enjoy it enough to stick around, and if you do, come over to the Ravelry group and say hello and tell us a bit about yourself. It's great when I get to speak to people after they've listened to me speak to them. It feels more like a conversation. So it'd be lovely to hear from you if you choose to do that. And everyone who has watched before, who hasn't yet come over to the Ravelry group, please come. It's a nice place. So I think after that I shall get on with Stuff and Things. So Stuff and Things, obviously, there are 2 days before the end of the spin along. If you watch this on the day it goes up, which will probably be Tuesday the 29th, you will have another day to get your project weighed, measured, photoed and up into the FO thread. So hopefully there'll be a couple more people out there who are going to enter. There's already been a few people who have posted, so it'd be nice to have a few more, but those who have entered already, they've got gorgeous spinning projects. It's been lovely seeing all the fibres people have been using and the different methods of spinning, so it'd be really good to see any more projects in there. The prizes, the details are up in the spin along threads on Ravelry, and links to those are in the show notes, which are on www.stitchtogether.co.uk. And I'll tell you about my own spinning in No to the Grindstone. And before I go any further, I'm wearing the Cool Clavicle cover by Megan Williams of the Stockinette Zombies, and it's knit out of Sweet Georgia Tough Love Sock in the Tea Party colourway. I think that's the name. Anyway, the link's in the show notes if you want to know more about it. It's pinned in place with a penannular brooch, which I find very useful because they don't shift around, they don't drop out. Very, very useful bits of kit. So, done and dusted. I've just realised I said that I'd talk to you about my spin along project in No to the Grindstone. I won't. I'll tell you about it now because I finished. Very exciting. I have done 2 skeins and they are the same fibre, which is Hilltop Clouds BFL Cashmere Silk. And I bought a natural undyed braid of fibre and a sort of autumnal coloured fibre. And I decided that I wanted to spin them to be used together. So I wanted them to be the same weight, same construction. And I think I've pretty much nailed it. I'm really pleased with what I've got. And I think the colour's a bit screwy today. I think I'm never going to wear a red top again when I video because it's a bit strange. Hopefully it'll all work out in the wash. But it's so soft and fluffy. I don't know if you can see how fluffy it is. It's absolutely gorgeous. And that's the cashmere is that gives it the halo. And it's so smooth and soft. I mean, it's so very much next to the skin softness. It's beautiful. I really wish I had more of this fibre because it's delicious and I really enjoyed spinning it. So in the undyed, it was all spun worsted, and I used my Spanish Peacock Beadwell spindles, which are nice and fast. And what I got was, I spun it as a worsted 2-ply, and it came out as a heavy fingering weight, and that gave me 303 meters out of 106 grams for the natural. And for these sort of autumnal colours, there we go, absolutely beautiful colours. I spun it exactly the same way and again got heavy fingering, but this time I got 332 meters for 105 grams. So obviously there's a slight bit of variation in those, but not enough for it to be noticeable when knitting it, I don't think. So I'm just so happy with how these came out, and I think they'll make an amazing two-coloured shawl. I have no idea which two-coloured shawl, but I'm really happy with how they came out. And if the people who joined in the spin along are as happy with their finished projects as I am with mine, I consider that it's been a success, because I'm absolutely delighted with these, and it's definitely a mark of my improving skills that they are relatively consistent with each other. I'm pretty pleased about that. I think it's because I spun it pretty quickly. I didn't leave any gaps in between. It was, you know, I just spun it within the space of 2-3 weeks, and I think that makes all the difference in the world. I soaked it, and I soaked them in scented soak, and I soaked them in separate buckets, because scented soak, scented Eucalan, those kind of leave-in soaps, they can sometimes cause dyes to leach out. Not always, but sometimes, and reds are notorious for doing so, and I figured there was enough of a red hue to this that it might leach out, so I did them in separate things, and actually not very much came out at all. So I think they'll work fine together, knitted up together and washed together. But to be on the safe side, I'll probably do it with the unscented version when I do wash it, just to be on the safe side, because that creamy colour is just beautiful, and I don't want to ruin it. I want that to stay as creamy and gorgeous as it is now. So that is my spin along project, and after I'd finished that, I decided I was going to do some knitting. And the knitting I decided to do was my sister-in-law's Christmas present. Now, it's no surprise to her, because she chose the yarn and she chose the pattern, so it shouldn't be a problem for me to show it off here. And this is Pebble Beach by Helen Stewart. And the yarn, it's really hard. It's the yarn is from Black Bunny Fibres. It's merino silk sock, so it's 50-50 merino and silk. And this thing just drapes fantastically. I mean, it's just lovely, and I love the colours in it. My sister-in-law decided that she wanted this particular shawl because she tried on the one I've got, and it just sits really nicely. She wears it kind of like a bandana style, with the wide part at the front and then tails wrapped around her neck, which is how I usually do it. I just can't do it with this particular shawl because it's not, the tails aren't long enough to sit comfortably. But yeah, she tried them all on and decided that this was one for her. I kind of show you the reason this works so nicely is because it is really shallow and wide, which gives you these really lovely kind of long tails that kind of spiral towards the bottom, and it keeps it really well in place. It gives you really good coverage and really shows off the yarn. So it's a great shawl, and I think I will probably knit myself another one, but probably in hand spun, because I think that'd look amazing in hand spun. Possibly the Polwarth silk from Into the World that I spun a few weeks ago. I think that'd look amazing in this, and it would be a real sort of highlight piece around my neck, and I think it would work really nicely because it's a Polwarth silk, so it's got some drape in it as well as the bounce of the Polwarth. So anyway, Black Bunny Fibres, and I think it was a one-of-a-kind colourway. Oh, actually, the merino silk sock is 70% merino, 30% silk in the Peekaboo colourway. And yeah, my sister-in-law is very lucky that I love her so much, because I love this a lot. I really want to keep it. And sadly, Black Bunny Fibres is tricky for me to get my hands on, because her yarn is quite often above the threshold for customs charges. So I think this was in a sale, or there was a coupon code or something, because that's usually the only way I can get any. But I absolutely love her colour sense. So yeah, at least that's one Christmas present out the way, and very, very happy with that. And I'm pretty sure my sister-in-law will be happy with it as well. And after I finished that, because I pretty much knit that just start to finish, didn't touch anything else while I was working on that, I finished a pair of socks that have been hanging around for months. I think it's because it's cool enough to start wearing socks again in the house, and that's what prompted me. I've not knit on any socks the whole time I've not been wearing any. So these are socks knit in the Knit Picks Felice sock yarn in the afternoon colourway, and it's just my own vanilla sock pattern, which has sort of mirrored left and right toes. Let me see if I can see the edge there. So I have it shaped so it's taller on the inside where my big toe and second toe are, and then it sort of goes quite wide quite quickly, and then shapes again for here, simply because I've got very wide feet, and having them sort of tailored to fit my toes makes them a lot more comfortable. And I did the Fish Lips Kiss heel, which I find very, very easy to work and fits my heels pretty well. And then did a few increases at the top here before doing a 1x1 rib, and that's because it comes up high enough to the bottom of my calf where it sort of gets chunkier, so it doesn't cut into my calf, because I like them to come up a decent amount, so when I'm sat down my sock covers the gap between my shoe and my trousers, because obviously when I go out on my scooter, my mobility scooter, that's the position I'm in. I'm sat down, and often the trousers will just ruck up. No matter what I do, they'll ruck up, and if I've got shorter socks on, my ankles get cold. So that's why I have them a little bit taller than I probably would have done before I started using the scooter. So yeah, the yarn is kind of strange, the Knit Picks Felice. I understand why people rave about it, because it's very, very soft indeed, and it has really high elasticity, which means I had to reduce my stitch count by 4, I think. And I still think these socks will probably bag on my feet as well. But yeah, they're very soft. I don't know how well they're going to wear, but I'm not very hard on my socks because I don't really go out very much, so I'm usually just wearing them sort of round the house, bare feet or slippers, so they don't really get rubbed on in the heel or anything. So I think they'll be fine, and the colour's kind of fun. It's definitely a summer colour. That'll hopefully cheer me up when it gets cold. So I think that is it for Done and Dusted. So I shall move on to Nose to the Grindstone. Now, first up is something you've seen before, and that is the Hitafude by Hiroku Fukatsu. And let me just take that off. I'm knitting this in Araucania Botany lace, and it's a pink colourway. Has it got? Yes, 2118 for those people who need to know these things. And when I showed you this last time, I had joined the sleeves and I knit the button band, well, not button band, border around it, in order to then start doing the skirt part of it. And I think I mentioned then that I'd sort of messed up a bit on my stitch counts to sort of bind off at the back. And in fact, I hadn't really. I just needed to do a few more bind offs and then everything worked out fine. So I didn't have to undo anything really, which is always a relief. Anyway, when I'd done this and I'd sort of done a few repeats of the lace chart in the sort of lace body bit, I noticed something. And I thought, you know what, I'm not going to go back because no one's going to notice. 3 needle bind off with, see this pearl ridge here, backwards, pearl ridge here. Yeah, that's not supposed to be there. I think it's where I did the provisional cast on. I think I probably started knitting the wrong way, but I probably could have gone back and fixed it, but I couldn't be bothered. Essentially, it's going to be under my arm, no one's going to notice. And normally I'd be like, oh no, I can't stand it, it's horrible, and I'm like, nah, don't care. I am not undoing all of that knitting. So I'm pretty pleased because I added an extra repeat into the depth of the sleeves, and that's given, because I've got quite chunky biceps, so that should, I've tried it on and it's stretched out fine, so obviously when I block it I'll stretch it out again, so hopefully it won't be as clingy when I wear it, but if it is, it's not a problem. It'll just stretch the lace out and make you look more obvious. And actually putting the extra lace repeat in to the sleeves also adds an extra repeat to the back before you get the ribbed band at the back, and I think that'll help because I've got quite a long torso from my armpit to my waist. It's like I've got a long rib cage essentially, so putting an extra repeat before you even start the arm, sort of get to the armpits, that'll hopefully just add a little bit of extra length. And to be honest, I've heard a lot of people say with this that they wish they'd done the body longer, so I'm definitely going to do the body longer. I don't know by how many repeats, I'll just keep going until it sort of reaches below, sort of right to the base of my back, to essentially where, you know, when you sit down, the rise of your trousers, so it'll cover that. So I don't get any cold back syndrome with this. So yeah, it's come along pretty nicely. I've done 2.5 lace repeats at the back since I did the ribbing, which isn't an awful lot to show, but I did only pick it up again at the weekend because of not wanting to have a look at the ribbed band, which was stupid because at the end of it all it was fine. I just needed to bind off another 3 stitches. So that's what happens when you're not feeling great. Your brain just gives up on you. It's a sad state of affairs. And in case anyone's interested, this is a Lowland Originals bag, and there's an Etsy shop. Isn't that pretty? I love this fabric, and the bag is so sturdy. It's perfect for a big project, keeps it well contained. So I've been working a bit on that. The other thing I've been working on since I finished my socks is another pair of socks. Now, you've seen these before, but not in this form. This yarn is Countess of Lace, and it's the Viscount of Spark in the Riots and Revolts colourway. Trying to find it. Where did I put it? Riots and Revolts colourway. Now, these started out as Zigzagular Socks by Susie White, who is Prairie Girl Susie from the Prairie Girls Knit and Spin podcast. And I really like the pattern. However, I couldn't seem to read my own knitting, which meant I was constantly having to count the chart, and that kind of defeats the object really. I think it might have been because this was such busy yarn. It was kind of hard to see, and it just stayed at the same place for months, and I just thought, well, I'm not going to pick it up again. I know myself. I'm not enjoying it. It's not easy. My sock knitting is my easy knitting. It's the stuff I do when I want to chat to people or when I want to read a book, something simple, and it just wasn't happening. So I ripped it right back to the toe, and it got up to about this far up the leg as well, but I just thought I'm never going to finish it, and I'm certainly not going to cast on the second sock. So I ripped it all back and just did a simple 2x2 rib. Love the flashing on this, it's fabulous. Look at that. And I really love how the heel works. I really love that. So I did 2x2 rib on the top, and then when I'd done the Fish Lips Kiss heel, I knit for about another inch, and then I started ribbing all the way around. And I might make these slightly shorter than my normal ones, just in order to not have to worry about doing increases or anything. Though it might be that the ribbing means I don't have to do it, because I've just kept the same stitch count, so it might be that I can get away with just carrying on as normal without doing any increases. So that's the sock I'm working on. You can see I've still not got back to where I was supposed to be, because can you see the kink on that? That's all the stuff I've rubbed out. So, I'm using Poke Me Not from Jambi Smiley on Etsy, and I really do like these because it stops stuff falling off your knitting and it stops it poking through your bag as well, which is good for 2mm needles. These are ChiaoGoo needles, by the way. I don't tend to bother telling you what needle sizes I'm using because I have weird gauge. I'm usually a very loose knitter, so generally my needle size bears no resemblance whatsoever to the gauge and the needle size in the pattern, so that's why I don't bother telling you what needle size I'm using. I might mention that I'm 2 sizes down or 3 sizes up or whatever if there's anything very different, but that's generally why I don't bother telling you. And nearly all the needles I ever use are ChiaoGoo interchangeables, unless they're the 2mm ones, because they're on fixed circulars, and that's what I use. I use two circular needles to do 1 sock at a time. I used to do 2 socks at a time, but I realised that actually it was less of a faff to just work on 1 sock and have 1 sort of strand of yarn at a time hanging down. It meant I didn't get tangled up or anything, and it actually worked out quicker for me, I think. Now, after finishing recently some big shawls, I decided to cast on another big shawl. Now, these yarns are the ones I showed you a few weeks ago in plotting, and I was talking about doing Dusk into Twilight by Romy Hill, and I really wasn't sure about it. And then a new-ish or new to me pattern I came across on Ravelry by Amber O'Brien, and it's called the Cardinia Wrap, and it's another big sort of 3 skein sock weight yarn shawls, 3 separate colours, nice big wrap, and I just thought I really want to knit that, and I think it'll work better because after I told you about the plotting, Eleanor got in touch with me, and I don't know how to pronounce your Ravelry name, Eleanor, I'm really sorry. It's like always, but without the A between the W and Y. Always Knit, or Always Knit, I don't know. But she reminded me of a trick my quilting tutor told me about when you're trying to get colour ranges to work, when you want a good sort of coverage of light, medium and dark. You basically take a photo on your mobile phone and what have you, and then you convert it into black and white, and you can see the sort of the depth of the colours without having the colours muddling your brain up. And actually, yes, there was a progression in darkness between the 3. It wasn't huge, so I decided it wouldn't work for Dusk into Twilight, and instead I decided to use them for the Cardinia Wrap. So it starts off with eyelet it's the like a mesh on the edge, and then it moves into an eyeletted section of stocking stitch, and then it moves again into more mesh in the same colour that you start with, and then you do a big panel of that in the centre, and then you do another panel of stocking stitch with the eyelets, followed by another mesh section at the top. And I have to say, I really like this base of yarn. It is lovely to knit with. It's quite firm. It's got quite a firm hand. It's plied pretty tightly. I think I sort of mentioned last time that this is same base of yarn across 3 different dyers, and this is from the Kettle Yarn Company, and it's the black quartz colourway, and that's the colour the mesh is done in, which is that one. And the green next to it is all gone. I have this much left. That's all I've got. And I didn't finish the repeats. I think I finished like two rows early, because I ran out of yarn essentially, and I looked at it and I looked at how it worked, and I decided that there really was not much in it at all for those 2 rows, and it doesn't look any different to me, the top and the bottom. It just seems to work fine as far as I'm concerned. So what I've done on the back of that essentially is, because I used the same needle size that the pattern called for, I didn't go down like I normally would, but I really like the fabric of this knitting. It's a really nice density. It's not too loose, but it's not too firm either. I really like it for this particular yarn, which has a really firm twist to it. So it's probably drapier than the pattern called for. In fact, I'm sure it is, but I like it with this yarn. So I thought I'd leave those panels in the needle size that was suggested in the pattern. But I knew that the mesh, I didn't want to mess around with the chart on the mesh, so I've dropped down a needle size for the mesh, and hopefully that means I won't run out of yarn. And then I will go back up to the recommended needle size for the 3rd panel, which is from Truly Hooked, and that is, what's that colourway? Merida. Oh, I forgot to mention the fact this green one is from the Wool Barn, and it's called Lagoon. And the base across all of them, they all have different names, but basically it's 60% superwash merino, 20% yak down, and 20% silk, she says off the top of her head. Yes, I was right. Quite pleased about that. So yeah, this section, the stocking stitch section, has been nice and mindless, but the mesh, I do have to kind of look at what I'm doing occasionally, so I can't really sit and read with it. So it's sort of podcast or TV watching knitting, and I kind of put that to one side because I really wanted to get back on and do the Hitafude, because it's basically, it's a cardigan, and it's a lightweight cardigan, which is perfect for this time of year. So I really want to crack on with that. Sorry about that. That was a delivery that I wasn't expecting till tomorrow. So that's why that got an interruption. An interruption. My mouth has stopped working. So yeah, that's why I've been concentrating mainly on the Hitafude rather than the wrap, especially as I have plenty of wraps. Don't really need another one, I just want another one. And it's a great way of using up all those skeins of sock yarn that you buy because they're so pretty. Sorry if you heard the clattering of the cat flap as well. So that's what I've been working on. One thing I wanted to introduce to the podcast, it's not, I don't know how regular this is going to be, but it just prompted me because of one of the comments in the Podiversary thread, and that was a suggestion they'd like to know sort of about some of my older projects and how they've worked and whether they've been whether they've worked long term. So I thought I would introduce that as an idea with Blast from the Past. So the ones I thought I'd start with are Fiddlehead Mittens, which is a pattern by Adrian Basilea, and I used Debbie Bliss Cashmerino DK, which is the cream yarn, and Norrow Silk Garden Light in 2013. And I knit these in February 2012, and I love them. Absolutely. I mean, look at the detail. Isn't that gorgeous? And they are so thick because not only are they stranded, they have a knit lining too. And I love them so much. They're so warm. They are slightly tight, but that means they stay on my hands. There's no shaping whatsoever, apart from the thumb, and there's no real increase for the thumb gusset, so it kind of just sticks out like that. But they are incredibly warm and they're lovely and soft. So I've been wearing these pretty much maybe 4 times a week throughout the winter since 2012, and they're starting to look a little bit raggedy. I don't know if I can, how easy it is to show you the pilling. There we go, on the edge. But they're not very badly pilled, considering Debbie Bliss Cashmerino is very, very soft yarn, and it's actually the Norrow that is pilling rather than the Debbie Bliss. So I think if I depilled this, it would look fantastic still. It's a really fun pattern because it's stranded knitting in the round, and like I say, incredibly warm, which is kind of essential when I'm out on my mobility scooter in the winter, because as you're on the scooter, your hands are at the front getting really, really cold. And because obviously you're not moving, like when you walk, your arms swing, which sends blood pumping to your hands, which keeps them nice and warm. Whereas when you're not walking, where you're sitting down and you've got your hands in one position and that one position is elevated and in front of you, the circulation isn't as good and you get really cold hands. And I can sometimes end up with like completely white numb fingers if I don't keep them warm enough. So these keep me warm enough. They are exceptionally warm and highly recommend them. And looking at them now, I'm thinking I kind of like to knit them again. There's no reason to, because these are still in pretty good nick, and like I say, I think I might just give them a depill before winter, and I think they'll look as good as new. So Fiddlehead Mittens by Adrian Basilea in Debbie Bliss Cashmerino DK and Norrow Silk Garden Light. Very, very happy with how well these have lasted. So that's why I decided those would be my first project from Blast from the Past. Obviously my projects aren't going to be very, very old because I haven't been knitting. I started knitting 2007, 2008. So we're not going to be looking at 20-year-old jumpers. but nearly all the stuff I've knit has either been in magazines or available on Ravelry, or in books that are still available. So the stuff I'll be showing you, you can probably still get a hold of, and it's likely to be useful information if you're wanting to do those patterns yourself. So that, I think, is that for that section. And next up is Splashed Out. Now, on, I think, what was the day? It was not Friday we've just had, but the Friday before, a very special yarn was released, and that was to celebrate Blacker Yarn's 10th birthday. And for that birthday, they released a very special yarn which had 10 sources of animal fibres from the UK, and blended them together and dyed up in 4 or 5 colourways. And they had a 4-ply yarn and they had DK weight yarn. And I went online and went to Brit Yarns and bought 2 skeins. And I absolutely fell in love with them when I got them. Absolutely fantastic yarn. It's this is the Levant Grey, which is, it's a really warm grey. Don't know if you can see it. It's almost got undertones of brown or fawn in there. And then there's the Wheel Rose Red. Wheel is spelt like wheat, but with an L at the end instead of a T. It's fabulous. And it's got all sorts of wonderful fibres in here. Can I find it on this thing? No, it's not on there, and I've not put it on there either. I'm going to find it for you because the list is impressive. So I decided I was going to get 2 colourways, and I was going to do Hat and Mitt set from Toasty by Rachel Coopy. And then I got the yarn. I thought, it's almost too nice to be just a hat and mitts. I kind of want it to be a shawl. So let me see. The contents are 20% alpaca, 20% merino, 10% mohair, 10% Teeswater, 10% Shetland, 10% Black Welsh Mountain, 10% Jacob, and 10% Gotland. So it's a really, really interesting combination of fibres that have been put together very, very thoughtfully. Now, the alpaca and the merino keep it soft because that makes up 40% of the fibres. And then it's got the mohair and the Teeswater for strength. And it's just been really blended beautifully, and I wouldn't say it's soft to the touch, but it's next to skin softness, and that is before it's knit up and washed. So it feels, if you've ever had something you've knit in Shetland wool and worn it for a couple of years, that's how this feels like before it's been knit and washed. So I know it's going to be so much softer when it's knit up and washed and worn. But I think it's going to be much sturdier than a yarn that was just alpaca and merino, because of, you know, it's got the hardiness of Jacob and the Black Welsh Mountain in. And I just think it was so interesting as a yarn. And also I wanted to support Blacker Yarns because they've done so much great work in this community to promote sort of more of the unique sheep breeds we have in the UK. And she runs a mill which gives, you know, smallholders an access to having their fleece spun up, and they can then sell it on as they choose. And I think that again is something that's really, really important. And I felt that I wanted to support the mill, and this yarn seemed so interesting to me and so beautiful, as well as such a great concept that I had to get some. The yarn was pretty reasonable. It was like £12.90 a skein for 100 grams, and it's quite a heavyweight fingering. You get 350 meters for 100 grams, so it's not skinny. It's probably verging on a sport weight, to be honest. Especially when I bet it's knit up, I bet it blooms. It's got that kind of look to it. What's the gauge say? 34 rows and 28 stitches to 4 inches square. Yeah, heavy fingering. But when I got it, I was so in love with this yarn, and I saw a few people have posted their yarns on Ravelry when they got them, and I absolutely fell head over heels in love with the blue colour and the turquoise colour, and I was like, they've sold out everywhere. I mean, Black Yarns sold out the same day. I think possibly Brit Yarns might have some of the green in the DK left, or she did at the weekend. I don't know if she still does, but they held some back for Yarndale, and my sister-in-law went to Yarndale. She texted me during the week and said, I'm going to Yarndale. Is there anything you want me to keep an eye out for or pick up for you? I'm going to be choosing your Christmas present there. And I was like, well, perhaps you could get me some more Cornish tin in either the blue or the turquoise. I don't mind if it's the DK or the 4-ply, as long as they're the same. And you get me the same sort of like 2 skeins of the colourway that you get, because I wanted to be able to do like a nice big shawl or something, just enough to do a decent sized project to really show it off. And I got a text on Sunday saying, we're at the booth, I've got you the blue colour 4-ply 2 skeins of that. The turquoise DK, they've got some turquoise in the DK. Do you want me to get you that as well? I was like, oh, can't afford it. Yes. So yeah, I'm going to be the proud owner very shortly of, at least I hope shortly. I don't know if she'll hang on to it until we see each other next, which I don't know when that'll be. Or whether she'll pop it in the post for me. But I need to send her the money for 4 skeins of this stuff. But I think whatever I knit out of them, the yarn is going to be fantastic. And I'm really pleased that I caved and got the extra yarn. I know it was a bit greedy of me, and I know there might be people out there who possibly couldn't get the yarn that they wanted because of me. But I can't be guilty about that, because I was lucky enough to have someone who could shop for me at Yarndale. And I didn't know that was going to happen when I bought the first 2 skeins. So the other thing I bought was from Countess Ablaze, because she has started dyeing again after a summer hiatus, and she's got a brand new studio, and it's fantastic because she's got room for a table and chairs and stock on display, and 2 days a week, which I believe is Friday and Saturday, she will be open to the public. Now, it is only Friday and Saturday, even though she might be in the studio extra days, but those days she will be dyeing. And for health and safety reasons, you cannot go into the studio when she is dyeing. Therefore, if you turn up on any other day other than Friday and Saturday, you'll get waved at through the door. That's pretty much probably all you're going to get, because of all the health and safety issues of having dye and the water and just everything. It's just not safe to have members of the public in the studio at the same time as her dyeing. So those 2 days you can go and buy direct from the shop, Friday and Saturday. So I wasn't going to get anything because I have an awful lot of Countess Ablaze yarns, as you know, but she put some new sock blanks up, and I hadn't got sock blank the last time she did them, and I regretted it when I saw the sock blanks on Caffeinated Knitting, and I was like, oh, that's so beautiful, I really wish I'd got that. But by that time it was too late, and they'd sold out. She'd sold out of sock blanks. So when I saw this, you see, it looks really just like dark blue. But then if I can get this off. When you open it up, it has these amazing, it looks like nebula to me. It's just fantastic. Blues and greens and pops of purple. It's just fantastic, and it's on the Viscountess Spark sock blank, which is the same as the socks I'm currently knitting, which means they're very soft, very squishy and pretty sparkly socks, which makes it even look like Nebula to me. I love it. By the way, did anyone stay up and watch the Blood Moon? I really wanted to, but it was only due to start at 1 AM and would be maximum about 3:20, I think, 3:30 in the morning, and I just couldn't do it. And besides, I think I would have had to go outside to see it, and at that time of night, usually in my nightie, so I wasn't going to do that. So yeah, kind of sorry I missed it, because I think it would have been a fantastic sight to behold, and I'm kind of jealous of the people in the States who had it late, sort of earlier on in the evening for them, whereas for us it was like the depth of night. So anyway, moving away from that, I love this sock blank, and I cannot bring myself to knit socks out of it. It's lovely and soft. It's fantastic. It's like 80%. I think it's 80%. I can check. I've got the ball band. 75% merino, 20% nylon, and 5% stellina. And it's one of a kind 16 or I6. It's hard to tell. But it's lovely and soft. Very, very soft indeed. So I think it might be mitts, long fingerless mitts, or some form of cowl, like that I can loop twice. I don't know. I can't decide, because it's really very special, and I kind of want to keep that sort of nebula effect. I just think it's absolutely fantastic. So any ideas, let me know. And I think that is it for Splashed Out. Though obviously when my other Cornish tin comes in, I'll show you. I don't know if I mentioned, yeah, this is the 4-ply version. And the other that I'm getting is going to be like 2 skeins of the DK in turquoise and 2 skeins of the 4-ply in the blue. So I'll show you those when they come in. I don't know how long it will be. It might be a while, but I just thought I'd mention it at the same time as the original. So finally, I want to say thank you in online community to both Andy from the Andre Sue Knits podcast and Maureen from Victorian Studio podcast. Say thank you for your mentions in your recent episodes. It always makes me smile when someone mentions my name on another podcast, especially if it's a complete surprise. So thank you, Andy. Thank you, Maureen, for your mention. It made my day. I smiled a lot when I heard that. So thanks a lot. And I think on that note, I've covered everything that I wanted to talk about today. Do you know what? I haven't. Forgot something in Nose to the Grindstone, but I'm not going to go back. Shall I go back? Did I list it in my show notes? I did. So I'm going to talk about it completely out of sequence. Oops, sorry to knock you. I thought that'll teach me. The fibre that I am spinning now, that I've finished my spin along project, is BFL in the Iron Man colourway from Yarn Geek Fibres, and it's beautiful, absolutely stunning. And I had 8 ounces of this. I still have 8 ounces of this, but that is all the fibre I've got left to spin. This is what I've spun so far. So essentially that is 4 ounces, and this will be 4 ounces, and I will apply them together, and think I'll probably end up with a light fingering 3-ply, possibly, but it's BFL, so it'll be lovely and strong and drapey and soft and silky to touch. So I think it makes a fantastic big shawl. So that's my plan for that. And yeah, hopefully it won't take me too much longer. This is my Neil Brand spindle, which I love. And I've been tempted to get another one, but then I end up getting Spanish Peacock or Enid Ashcroft instead, because they're easier to get. Even though they're hard to get, they're easier than getting Neil Brand ones. And yeah, hopefully that'll be finished next time I speak to you. Might not be, but you never know. So now I'm done. Now I'm done. Now I've got to go and try and remember how to splice 2 videos together because of the interruption in the middle. Please be patient with me if it's all a bit of a mess. And come over and have a look at the spin along finished objects, even if you've not taken part in the spinning. There are some lovely stuff there. Is some lovely stuff there. It'd be lovely to hear in the chat thread what you think and whether it's inspired you or not to get a spinning again. Because I know a few people had sort of backed off on the spinning since the Tour de Fleece finished, and they sort of got back into it through this. So it'd be nice to hear of those stories if anyone's got into it again. I've really enjoyed it. Really enjoyed this craft along. It's been very rewarding. The group has been very friendly, and it's been nice. So on that note, I shall say farewell, and hopefully I will see you again soon. Bye.